Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Moon Knight. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we were picking up in the aftermath of last episode, after everything went down in the museum, and when Steven wakes up, he thinks, like, no, it can't be real, couldn't have been real, and he goes to talk to his reflection. He's like, are you in there? He's like, yeah, I guess not. Like, because he's stuck between, like, was that real, was that not? He goes to the museum, it's like, no, wait, it had to be real, right? And I love that he's talking to JB, the security guy. He's like, all right, you see this stuff on the footage, it's going to be mental, it's going to be wild, and all he sees is himself. It's like, wait, what? You don't see the giant jackal that's chasing after me? I don't see it either. He's like, what? Does it? Because the guy's like, oh, the Hound of the Basketball. He's like, no, it was a jackal. But then it's like, wait, when I come out the bathroom, wait, I'm not wearing it. But he's like, that's not me. That's Mark in control. And now he's literally losing his mind, along with losing his job. The HR dude's like, hey, might want to talk to somebody about this. He's like, right. He's like, trust me, Steven, you're not in this alone. He's like, right, that's kind of the problem, isn't it? And I thought when he was saying, like, oh, did you actually steal something from the museum or something? And he was like, no. I thought when he was going to check his pockets, he was going to find something. But it's like, no. The only thing he had to hand over was his little identifying badge. So for him, he's got it in his head, like, I need to figure this out. I need to understand if this is all real. Like, am I just losing my mind or not? And I love that stuff. I keep referencing, because it's the best example I can use in the superhero genre, is Legion. Like, how much of, like, the aspect of, you guys say I have all these powers and that I'm not crazy, but what if I actually am crazy? Like, what if there is something wrong with me and I just don't know it? And so he needs to verify, like, right, he looks into trying to find the storage places that he has, because apparently Mark has one. Goes in there, you see a whole bunch of clothes and stuff, and it's like there's a bed. You're like, and then now Steven and Mark have a full-blown conversation, and Mark's like Steven's trying to understand all of it. Mark's like, all right, this is what I am. I am Khonshu's avatar. Khonshu was in the Egyptian god. Yes. I basically have to do something for him, so let me finish this up, and you'll never see or hear from me again. And the episode starts taking interesting developments when it's like, oh, cool. He's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn all this stuff in. I love that that's going to be a thing we're going to see a lot more. Every reflective surface, they're going to, like, talk to each other through. Because even when he was sitting on a bed or whatever, trying to, like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind, the fact is the gun's up there, and obviously it's reflective. And even then you see Mark like, come on, just give me control of the body. Let me finish this, and you'll never see me again. I was like, oh, I love stylistically how you do that. I'm sure that's probably, like, straight out of the comics. Like, probably all reflective surfaces probably work like that for Moon Knight's character, but I thought that was so dope. But he's like, you know what? No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to the police, and then basically they're going to lock me up, and I can get shoved full of so many pills that you disappear that way. It's like, because he's like, no, I don't believe all this. This is wild. This is crazy. No. Then I love that creepy scene of him outside, because, like, right, you do this, Khonshu is not going to be happy. Our deal was predicated on that you not interfere. Which sadly, I think, gives Khonshu the way to kind of wiggle around, like, oh, you kind of broke the agreement to our deal that he would never interfere. He interferes, so I get a little more leeway with, like, how... This episode, legitimately, you walk away, man, God, Khonshu is a dick, isn't he? He thinks this is for the greater good. He has his mission, but he's willing to do whatever it takes and use whoever he needs to and manipulate whoever he needs to get the job done. To be fair, most iterations don't present gods in the best of light. I mean, even Thor was like a partier. He was kind of like, but I mean, this isn't the same. This isn't a this is a very apples to oranges situation when it comes to gods. But I mean, Loki is, I guess, like, Khonshu's borderline Loki level devious. That you're just like, man, like, but a lot of stuff tends to not paint gods in the best light. Most things are kind of like, gods are kind of dicks. Whether it's the magicians, what else am I watching recently that, Legacies kind of definitely doesn't paint gods in the best of light. So that's fascinating. But I love that whole sequence of him running, and I like the lights clicking, and like as Khonshu's getting closer to him. And I was just like, oh, I love that. I just like how creepy that scene is. Like all the locks on the doors rattling, the lights flickering away, or he's running for his life, scared. Gets away from. I even just love the freeze frame of run to out in the street. Lo and behold, who does he run into? Layla. And because she still thinks this whole Steven thing's like front, and then she mentions like, yeah, like as long as you had this suit, you were fine. I was like, wait, she knows about it? I was like, so you know, because that's what I was thinking. Like, well, the little I know about Mark Spector, I was like, right, I know you're a mercenary. So I was like, and that's what I was wondering. I was like, does Layla know? Because for her to be like, right, you cut off contact with me. This is just some regular relationship. Like, it has to be a thing of she has to know. I didn't know how much she knew. She knows a lot more than I was thinking. So Mark must have still been. Well, to be fair, like. She says, like, right, you disappear, like, I've been texting you and calling for months. So I guess part of me was wondering, like, okay, so could it be that Mark got the suit after he disappeared for those couple months? Seems like he had it before then. Because later on when Mark says, like, he's been doing this for a long time. So we haven't specified how long it's been that he's been doing this thing. It might be one of those, like, MCU things where, like, nah, some of this God stuff has been happening for a long, long time. Even, like, we thought Thor was the first, like, Thor and Asgardians were the first gods to come to this world. It's like, no. Well, argument could be, like, the Eternals themselves, but, you know, they were probably viewed and seen as kind of, like, gods in their own right, but still. So I guess the Eternals kind of leaves that open enough to be like, yeah, there's a lot that the general world has no idea about. It's been kind of behind the scenes. Once again, it's one of those retroactive like changes to the continuity, but still, I think that's fascinating. But for, like I said, her to know like he had the suit, and that's why she wasn't too worried. But him leaving, like losing contact with her like that, she was worried. So she came to track him down. And I love Steven's like, I don't know what. She's like, why are you holding on to me like? He's like, oh sorry, and he kind of grabs her waist and he kind of feels weird about it. And he's like, wait, did you say you're my wife? I was like, okay. So things are getting more and more complicated. Then when they go to his flat, it's like, wait, you're talking to your mom? And it's like, oh, you guys are talking, and I'm like. Wait, okay, so who's Steven's mom? Because obviously Steven's mom isn't Mark's mom, so what's up with that? So I'm like, wait, what? And I also love like how they handle that, like when she's looking in the fish tank at the fish, and you see like Mark's reflection looking at her, like she shouldn't be here. Get her to leave, Steven. Even later on being like, right, you show her that beetle, you're going to be putting her life in danger. So whatever happens to her, that's going to be on you, Steven. So do not get her involved in this, because he wanted her to walk away. Because it turns out he tried to divorce her. And she's like, right, the divorce papers, this is what you want. It's like, right, I'm not Mark. Whoever Mark is, he's a twit for like, obviously, like, you're amazing. It's with just a little bit of time he spent with her. It's like, because Steven's like, oh yeah, this book is my favorite. She's like, no, it's mine. And he was quoting it, and she had quoted it back. Then like the hieroglyphics, and he's almost like, wow. Like, he's like, how is Mark with someone so amazing like you? He's such an idiot for not realizing what he has. But in Mark's defense, it is the superhero thing of protecting the people you care about by pushing them away. And so, but then she got upset because she's like, wait, this is the scare. We were in this together and you went off and took it. Like, what's that? What you going to do? He's like, no, you can have it. Just go. And it's like, right, wait, you really don't remember anything about our relationship, our adventures? And I think that's such an interesting thing for like, this to be an introduction to us. I mean, it was already there in episode 1, but it really gets fleshed out even more in this episode of just how much of Mark's story already happened. That we are in the mid. I guess it's so. I mean, that's always an interesting thing. Like, it's fascinating to start in the middle of someone's story as a superhero. Like Thor, he was already a god and everything. Like we saw him as an adult, but it's like it's just so interesting to know. Like we don't get the full blown origin story of like, all right, here's Mark. He dies, gets resurrected by Khonshu. That's already happened. But I think they do such a good job of making it one of his personalities that knows nothing about what's going on, and so we're getting introduced to all of this through him, like without having to go that far back in his story, without it being a full blown origin story. Very much like Spider-Man. Like Peter was already Spider-Man. He had the homemade suit. He was already doing the local superhero thing. Obviously, like his game got stepped up in Civil War because of Tony. So, and then eventually Homecoming, so on and so forth. So I find that so fascinating storytelling wise to be like, oh, this ain't like a full-blown origin story. Like Miss Marvel, not like it's anything against it. It is a full-blown origin story. I mean, to some, I'd say Shang-Chi still as well. I mean, because it's just those are full-blown origin stories, whereas this is like we're kind of starting in the middle of technically one character's origin story, Steven's, but March, it's in the middle of his story. And so we're kind of, through the lens of Steven, we're playing catch-up on everything that's going on because he doesn't know, he isn't aware. So it makes you wonder, how long was it before Steven came into existence? There's so much context that we're missing there, but it's still so fascinating that the moment those cops showed up and wanted to ask him questions, I was like, they work for Arthur, don't they? Especially because they're like, oh, what's this? He's like, oh, it's a paperweight. Where'd you get it? From a paperweight store? And it's like, yeah, you stole something. And they were asking about, the moment they were asking about the beetle and stuff like that, I was like, that's what this is about. That's what this is all about. They even before that, I was like, yeah, kind of suspicious how you just rolled up and just kind of bust your way into his place, take him somewhere, and it's like, oh, cool, you're not taking me to the police station. It's like, no, we're not. So there's just so much, and then the fascinating twist of like Arthur being like, oh, like, because the moment he's like, oh, okay, I didn't realize, no wonder the scales didn't work for you, Steven. You got Mark, and Khonshu was like, he knows about Khonshu? Shouldn't be too much of a surprise. His whole group that he's built this around, his kind of religious cult, is built around a god as well. So that should come as no surprise. But him then saying Khonshu specifically, it's like, oh, what's he saying? You should kill me right now? And Steven's almost like, how'd you know? And it's like, because I love Khonshu. It's like, kill him. Crush his windpipe. I was like, Jesus, bro. And it turns out he was Khonshu's previous avatar. I was like, fascinating. He was like, I used to be his fist of vengeance. And I love that we got a better understanding of what this is. It is different philosophies on how to approach the evil that is in this world. Khonshu comes and it's like, right, Khonshu harms those who've already done harm. But that's the problem that Arthur has. Khonshu's always showing up after the fact. Sadly, a lot of times, like, I mean, it's kind of like, I'm sure that you could look at that as almost like a metaphor for police. Like, sadly, police jobs, there can be preventative measures, but usually, especially like homicide, you're usually after the fact. There's preventive elements to it, because, like, right, you catch a killer, you stop them from killing any more people, but usually your job means you show up after the fact, after there's been a victim. So Arthur doesn't like that approach. And he was like, because he also talks a little bit, basically shits on Khonshu, being like, yo, that's why he was banished. Like, the other gods don't like him. I'm like, I wonder, is it like his approach was maybe like amongst the gods, he's the most extremist, which it seems like both him and Ammit might be on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're both the extremist examples with the gods, maybe. Ammit's about killing you before you do bad. Khonshu is about killing you after you've done bad. So that's fascinating. And it turns into like a moral philosophy question, because I always think those are so interesting to understand the character. Like, once again, the best example is, and they even brought it up during Endgame, like, oh, like, do we go back and basically snuff out baby Thanos? Granted, that won't do anything for them. That ended up being the whole conversation there. But that kind of goes back to the whole thing of, the time travel thing of, like, would you go back in time and kill baby Hitler? Yes, you would be killing Hitler, but you'd be killing Hitler back when he was a baby before he did anything terrible. So that's the complicated rub of it all. It's like, right, you know what his future holds, so, like, would you be okay with that? You'd be preventing a lot of terrible things from happening, obviously that's a little more of that's a little easier said than done, because we, as history knows, from a history perspective, we know what Hitler did. There are people who are still alive. I don't think there's a lot of people, but I think there's still a handful of people. Like, sadly, obviously, over the years, people are getting older, so their numbers dwindling, but there were people alive when he did what he did. So that's a little easier, like, snuff baby Hitler. But this situation is like, right, these are people who are going to do bad. Now, we never specify what the severity of their bad is. Could it be mild bad, super bad? Like, what level of bad are these people being judged on? Like, that's also the thing, like, some entity, some god is going to be the judge, jury, or executioner, basically determine, like, oh, you do something evil in the future. Because I love Steven pushes back. It's like, yeah, but that kind of sounds kind of messed up. It's like, once again, I referenced in episode 1, it's very Minority Report. Like, oh, let's take you out of the equation before you do. It's like, yeah, you're going to do something bad. It's like, yeah, but you're going to kill a kid because a kid might do something bad in 30 years? Because we still don't get the full rub of... Because people are... Because Amit's completely removing choice. Because choice plays such a good man. He's like, because even Steven's like, yeah, sometimes I think about killing my boss, but I don't do it because I know it's wrong. So you have to account for, a person's conscience, So that ends up being that thing of like, right, so you'll snuff someone out, but you don't, it's a possibility. It doesn't seem like it's a guarantee. It's just that Amit's able to tell, yeah, this person could potentially do this terrible thing at a later point in life. And Arthur's just like, yeah, I mean, if Amit says it, like, you will do something terrible, then you have to die. You have to die now, because that's how you root out all evil. Cut it off before it even has an opportunity to sprout. That's how you rid this world from evil. It's a preventative measure. Once again, whereas Khonshu is literally an avenger, whereas it's like, no, we're stopping it before we even get to the point of avenging. So... But from Arthur's standpoint, it's like it's a necessary risk. I love the metaphor of you have to. There's the only difference between medicine and poison. In this particular example, he was using of like it only takes the dosage amount to change a medicine to a poison. I was like, I like that like line and stuff. So because he even said it about Khonshu about how. With Khonshu, there's always going to be one more thing. It's like, right, I need you for this one mission. And then there's going to be another thing, and another thing, and another thing. You'll never be free of him. We don't know how he got free of Khonshu. Well, because it seemed like Khonshu is also always willing to jump to the next person. He already, even with Mark right now, he already has someone in mind who will be the next Avatar. So, that's fascinating in its own right. But getting a better understanding that Arthur wants to resurrect Amit because that's how you rid this world of evil. He'd also said something interesting too, where he was like, and I once again, I love it. I love which came first, the chicken or the egg, because it's like, right, did Khonshu come to you because you were someone whose mind was could easily be broken and taken control of? Or was your mind already broken? It's like, I was like, oh, I love it, because that's the question I was wondering, because I know very little about Moon Knight. Only thing I know is from people who are more well-versed in comics, or at least people who are a little more knowledgeable than me. I've heard talk on podcasts and stuff. I listen to enough, like, nerdy, superhero-related comic book stuff to pick up on stuff from people here and there. And so my thought was, okay, so the whole split person, the dissociative personality, identity disorder, the dissociative identity disorder, is that a byproduct of Khonshu bringing Mark back to life, of being Moon Knight? Like, is all that a contributing factor, or was Mark's mind already split? It seems like it might be an after effect, but maybe it's something he's dealt with his entire life. I don't know. It seems like it's an after effect, but why is that? Like, was it purely like it begs that question that Arthur presented. That question was like, that's so freaking fascinating. So I'll have to wait to see to get a better context of that. But Layla shows up and is like, all right, use the soup. He's like, the soup? And she's like, no, the soup. Summon the soup. He's like, I don't know how to do that. And Mark's the entire time, let me get control. Let me get control. But he knows what Mark did. That Mark zip-tied people and popped people execution style in Egypt. It's like, wait, you did terrible things. And Mark is like, it's not like that. He's like, no. That blood is on your hands. I'm never going to let you get control again. But, and so when the time comes, we see that Arthur's the one that summons the jackal that came after him the first time. Once again, unless you're tied to all of this, you can't see the jackal. And so it seems like the only people who can see it are Mark and Arthur. I wonder, is it a byproduct of Arthur formerly being Khonshu's fist of vengeance, or is it just because he's already tied to Amit now, and that still allows him to see the jackal? But because I was like, oh, that's so interesting. It's almost like it's like an example that came to my head is like Ichigo from Bleach. Ichigo can see ghosts when no one else can because of his circumstances growing up. I think I think canonically speaking, there's other contributing factors. Spoiler: his dad's a Shinigami, or at least was one. So, but I think the incident from being at a young age when his mom was killed by a hollow allowed him to see ghosts going forward. So he was kind of already predestined to be a part of that Shinigami and hollow and all of that, all the stuff that is Bleach. So I'm wondering, like, even if he stopped being Khonshu's Fist of Vengeance, I wonder, would Mark be able to see this stuff? Probably not. Because it's also interesting to know that the suit is a suit. It's not like, oh man, no one else can see it. I'm like, oh man, you just look like a crazy person. It's like, everyone can visibly see you in the suit. There's no denying that. But things outside of that, like from that world, like from the supernatural world, like that jackal being summoned, no one can see it. That's why it didn't pop up in the security camera footage, because Mark / Steven and probably Arthur are the only ones who can actually see it. So, but he's trying to summon the suit, and I love that. It's just like, oh, that looks so damn painful when he gets thrown out the window, and he's like, okay, I'm trying, and even before he put the suit on, but maybe it's just one of those things you didn't see it, but in the moment his head made impact, the suit had already started forming. So, because it's like his head went, bam, he hit like a steel beam or something, but then he goes down and he's in the suit. I was like, oh, is that how that works? I've seen the pictures of the different suits, not just in the confines of, like, yes, the TV show, but also from the comics. And I was like, oh, I didn't understand that. Now I got a better understanding. Mark's like, I love that he's like, right, we're like, look like an evil like Colonel Sanders or something. He's like, yeah, but I think we look pretty spiffy. And he pulls out from the back. He's like, oh, what are these from? He's like, oh, they're pretty cool. I love that. He's a bumbling idiot with the superpowers. But I was like, right. So each personality can bring forth a different suit. Because currently we're only dealing with two, Mark and Steven. We haven't really delved into whether there's more or not currently. But maybe eventually more will be created. Maybe some are so dormant. Once again, getting Legion vibes of, like, right, different personalities might be associated with, like, certain abilities and stuff like that. So I'm curious. But I like that being a thing of, like, right, that also shows you which personalities in control win, because Mark uses the more traditional, more formal, ceremonial uniform of being Khonshu's avatar, whereas Steven made his own because he thought she said suit, so he made a suit. And so that's interesting to know that the suit works like that it manifests itself based on the will of the user. So Mark is more traditional just because that's what was presented to him, but Steven didn't have an idea. So I guess the suit acts more as a construct that is like, right, it bends itself to its wielder's will. So I was like, that's fascinating. And obviously you can take quite a punch. I also think it's so interesting, and this is my brain thinking too much. He took off the jacket. I'm like, what happens to that jacket when you stop? Does that jacket eventually dissipate when you lose the suit? How does that work? You're taking all part of a magical suit. You can even roll up the sleeves. I'm like, how does that work? I'm thinking too much about it. The moment he took the jacket off, I'm like, what happens to that jacket? Does that jacket disappear? Or does, like, what happens? Or does it stay there? It has to disappear because it's all part of the same uniform. So it's like, I wondered the moment Mark took over and put on the more ceremonial suit, did that one disappear? Like, how does that work? Would it automatically disappear after a while no matter how long he's wearing it? I don't know. Like, would it be dangerous to leave pieces of this suit behind? There was a lot to it, but I do like that, you know, obviously he can take quite a hit. He's got superhuman strength. I love that when he's like, all right, you bastard, rolled up the sleeves and super punched it. He's like, yeah, he's celebrating and stuff. And even Mark's like, wow, that was actually a hell of a punch. But you can't do this on your own, Steven. Give me control, gets control, and immediately shifts over. Which I also love that you can just, at least in that case, like, I guess, because the moment I saw the suit in the trailer, immediately you think of like a symbiote. I think of like Venom and Carnage. Yes, I go to Venom and Carnage before anyone else because they're the big names. I'm not well versed in all the other symbiotes, so that's why I don't never really jump at them. But just symbiotes in general. But Venom and Carnage are the ones you see it the most with, forming around a body like that. To me, I love those suits. Those type of things. To me, I think like whether it's like nanotechnology, like one of Tony's suits was nanotech and formed around him like that, but also Spider-Man Unlimited. That's my earliest memory of a suit forming like that around you, because that was like based on nanotechnology. I was like, to me, I was like, that's why that's probably my favorite Spider-Man suit is the one from Spider-Man Unlimited. Just because I for one, I like the design, I like the shading of like. I also like the web cape. I'm going on a whole tangent, but my point was like I've always been a big fan of suits that are like that, that form around you like that in that manner. So I thought that was pretty dope. And Mark doesn't even really get a chance to talk to Layla. He just takes, because I think in that moment she's probably like, Mark? But it's like, right, get it away from everyone. And just like the running sequence and like pulling the blades off of his chest and running. And it chasing him. He's like, right there, come on. And they jump at the same time. He stabs it, grabs it, and like power drives it onto a spike, killing it. So I thought that was great. But in that moment, you know, Steven's like, right, is this what this is like? He's like, yeah, don't worry, just take a deep breath, you'll get used to it. It's like, that's heartbreaking to know, like, oh, like, what it's like on the other side of it. It's suffocating. It's like, you can't, Steven's like, right, I want my body back. He's like, I'm sorry, let me do this, finish Khonshu's mission, and then, like, complete the deal, and then you can have your body back. You'll never see me, you'll never hear from me again. So, but Steven's like, right, you're a bad person, I saw what you did, but he's like, everything I've done is because Khonshu resurrected me, and we made our deal that you wouldn't interfere. I have to do this, because if I don't do this, he's going to move on to Layla. He's already picked out his next avatar, and I'm not about to have her like be in his clutches, because I think Mark did bad things beforehand, but even more so now. It's like, right, how much of what went down in Egypt wasn't that probably like before things popped off, that was him doing all that, Khonshu resurrected him. It's like, right, all the people I've killed, the blood on my hands, everything I've done, being separated from the woman I love, it's all for the sake of keeping her safe, because if I'm around her, Khonshu's just going to use her, and I refuse to let her be involved in all of this. And Steven's just like, right, you're this, you're that. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know me. And I love that scene from the trailer of him snapping, just bashing in the mirror with his kicking it. I'm like, yeah, he was tired of it. It's just like, stop talking like you know me, you understand me, you know nothing about my circumstances. Because I love that he also said, right, our circumstances have changed. Like, I don't know what's going on, but things for us have changed. Whoever is in the body is stronger. It takes a lot of willpower just to make yourself pop up in any reflection. That takes a lot on its own. So getting back the power without the other person giving in willingly, there's no way to do it. We'll see if that lasts forever, but that's also why he wanted Steven to go to sleep, because that way you're in a relaxed state and it's easier and more malleable for someone to completely take control than unless, because it's the same as it's like, yeah, you're slipping into unconsciousness, so the other consciousness that are buried deep in your subconscious are able to rise to the surface. So, but Khonshu is like, right, you said that he wouldn't interfere. He's just like, right, if I do this for you, we're done, right? He's like, yeah, but then if our relationship ends, I'm going to have to move on to someone else, maybe someone near and dear to you. So, once again, Khonshu's a massive asshole. He's like, right, I won't let you go, and if you let me go, I guess I'll just have to move on to your wife. So it's like, right, where do we go next? Where the hell else are we going to go? Especially because now Arthur has the scarab, which is basically a compass to Amit's tomb. I also I didn't go into much about it, but the staff he has is not just for the sake of it's been to represent the balancing of the scales. It's also got some of Amit's power in it, hence why he was able to summon the jackal. What else it can do, we'll have to wait and see. But next thing we know, we see Mark in Egypt, and he's drinking, and we see Steven in the mirror. Because it's like, right, I had to leave Layla behind again, and I'm drinking because this is some bullshit. This is some massive bullshit. And just like, right, the only way you make it through all the stuff that you have to do, basically being Khonshu's not servant, straight up slave, being his whipping boy, that you just like, right, the only way you deal with it all, that your life is completely not your own. It's someone else's to puppeteer and use and manipulate, so you just kind of drink yourself into just kind of like, it's the only way you can make everything manageable, so. I am very, very excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.